Hey, I'm Jim Wiedrick. Every day I'm working to transform healthcare in Southeast BC. And one of my big ideas is having smart conversations one-on-one with folks who are big players in our healthcare scene and have ideas to move us forward. With that in mind, I'm really pleased to welcome in Nic Sparrow. Nic is the driving force behind KERPA. That stands, KERPA stands for Kootenay Emergency Response Physicians Association. And if you live and work in the West Kootenays, you've heard of that. The concept is a really unique one to Canada, and Nic's been profiled in all sorts of media. So hey, Nic, how are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Thanks for having me on your show, Jim.
Yeah, I love the fact that your response vehicle is in the background. Maybe just give the folks, let's assume that people haven't heard of what you're doing and what it's all about. Give them a quick flyover about what is KERPA, what's going on there.
My name's Nic. I'm a ER and EMS physician working in the Kootenays. Been working at Nelson Hospital for about 10 years and founded KERPA. We're a Canadian registered charity, and we're the first special operations medical retrieval certified service actually in Canada through CAMES, the Commission on Accreditation of Medical Transport Systems or Services. And essentially, we send a emergency physician, so emergency room physician, so anyone that you see either in Nelson Emerge or Castlegar Emerge, directly to the scene of critical 911 calls in the Kootenays. Been doing that. The program started back in 2014, so we're into our kind of 11th year of doing that with over like 1,500 calls answered in the Kootenays.
That is, something to absolutely celebrate because, really in our neck of the woods, we don't have what some major metros and other jurisdictions have. We don't have that really high level critical care paramedic crowd that can go to our local responses. So in effect, you're kind of filling that void or offering a service that just otherwise wouldn't be available. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think, critical care paramedics are the highest level of paramedics within British Columbia, and they can provide general anesthetic and pretty much most things that an emerge doc can provide. Very skilled paramedics, but there's also very few of them. And, the province of BC is absolutely massive. As you can tell, I have a funny accent from the UK, but you can get 8 UKs within British Columbia. It's just absolutely huge. And in the rural areas, the nearest helicopter response is coming from Kamloops. So that is an 80 or 90-minute helicopter flight of critical care paramedics into the area. And obviously, we're situated right in the Selkirk Mountains, where we have snow and bad weather, and not always accessible by aircraft. I'd also say that physicians involved in pre-hospital care or EMS is in some countries a gold standard as well. So it's a multidisciplinary pre-hospital care team. So I think British Columbia has not actually really seen physicians in the field, and KERPA is the first physicians that are responding in the field. But if you go to other countries like the UK have been placing physicians alongside paramedics in the field since the 1960s. So prior to even the BC ambulance service ever existing, in other countries, they've had physicians built into the system to provide extra care, extra support, national resiliency. And yeah, I was quite surprised. I came from actually South Africa before I came to BC. And there they have physicians rolling out 911 with EMS. And I was like, oh, wow, I thought, maybe South Africa would be different. But no, they have it. And then I came to British Columbia and they were like, no, that doesn't happen here. Physicians don't do this. And I was kind of like, well, actually, I think they could make a difference. And I believe KERPA has really proven that, to be honest.
Like I'm thinking of times when I've been involved in quote EMS, but it involved this kind of scenario. Someone was critically sick. We had to transfer them to a higher level of care. And then, about a half a dozen times in my career, I've jumped in the ambulance with them. And it always means someone has to back cover me or do something else. So it's really infrequent. But you're talking about helping out on calls before people even get into the hospital system. Because that's predominantly your role, correct?
Yeah, it's people trapped in motor vehicle accidents, cardiac arrests, seizing children, unconscious patients, drug overdoses, really the main critical calls. And I think, and we may have sort of talked about this before, but I think KERPA's been dispatched now to well over 100 to 110 cardiac arrests, and at least 20 to 30 traumatic arrests in the field, and unfortunately, 5 of those have been children. Now, if you were to work into like I've not seen that volume of critical cases in the emergency department in my career. So we're actually able to get to and help in the field is it far exceeds the critical care that we'd actually provide as emergency physicians in the emergency department, which is it's quite shocking actually. Like that, the most critical patients that are being seen and treated are actually in the field, not in the emergency department. I've done more critical procedures, more intubations, dealt with more critical patients in the field than I have working in an ED full time.
Yeah, there's just something about being like at the scene. I mean, when I was a kid watching the television show Emergency, these, paramedics back in the 70s, they were on the scene. It was a
Yeah.
different flavor than anything you had in the hospital. Yeah. And you really, in the last couple of years, my understanding is your organization, this whole setup has really grown. And now in 2025, you're bringing even more resources to bear. Tell us a little bit more about what's going on for you this winter spring season.
Yeah. So just so people who don't really know about the program, it first started with me responding in my own personal vehicle, buying bits of kit and going to the scene and helping. We have a collaboration agreement with the BC EHS. So people sometimes say, well, how are you doing this? Well, we have a contract with the government, just as the ambulance service have a contract with the government to support the emergency services and provide pre-hospital care. And so we went from a very like we're purely community funded, so we're not supported by government or government funds, should I say, at this stage. But we've gone from sort of a small vehicle, which was my own personal vehicle, with bits of kit, to a fully decked out EMS vehicle with sort of in excess of $150,000 worth of kit in the back. And we don't just have one of these trucks; we have a second one that's located in Castlegar and other physicians in the wings training. So we've gone from sort of humble beginnings to increasing amounts of kit that we're carrying to the scene, and critical care level kit. We carry ventilators, we carry cardiac, state of the art cardiac monitors with carbon monoxide, finger probes, it's and state of the art femoral splinting and drugs to sedate people. Yeah, it's quite impressive. Ultrasound we carry, chest tubes, and have the ability to do some surgical procedures on scene.
Yeah, amazing. And the public has really jumped on board and helped out a lot. You guys have fundraised significant coin.
Yeah, I mean, the community and businesses and grants have just been absolutely massive. And, if you look at us as a service, we've well and truly had over $500,000 fed into this system. And yeah, it's all community funded. The thing is, at the end of the day, KERPA has really had the privilege to help many patients in our communities, and I believe change outcomes. And in a small town, you know, this is kind of the irony. Every patient, in my opinion, matters, because the one makes up the many. And just one life lost in a small community is really felt by many. And so one life saved in a community makes a very big difference. And even when lives are lost, I believe KERPA has some of the impact KERPA has is sometimes even greater than when we actually save a life. Is when we're there when actually people die, because sometimes we can't prevent that, we can't stop it. But some of the impact and some of the relationships that we've since developed with families is just, I can't think of any other word than mind blowing.
And so in that space, you're referencing that you're able to be a psychological support, in effect, a comfort for the people who are involved in the tragedy. Or tell me a
Yeah,
little bit more about that.
yeah. I think we've actually saved lives of family members, and I think the family have given me permission to talk about this, but there's one family in particular, a young young man sadly died. His name was Alex, and his father was there helping to try and save him, resuscitate him. And on that day, KERPA was actually put in a helicopter and flown to the scene of a remote area. And I worked with Rob, the dad of Alex, to try and save Alex's life. And sadly, we weren't able to save Alex, um, and didn't find out until many, many, many months later, when Rob and his wife Louisa came to visit us, just to talk about what was done for Alex on that day. That the impact of KERPA being there amongst all the other emergency services, there were paramedics and police officers, and I'm sure there were more people there. Sometimes it can be quite hard to notice who's helping in the midst of a big emergency. That just the presence of us being there and just being kind, actually, Rob would say, saved his life, and saved it from wanting to end it, from the tragedy of experiencing his son dying on scene. And I would have never thought that, in the midst of patients dying and doing everything that you can and it not being enough, that you can still save lives. It's just super profound. And yeah, we still track with many families actually who have lost kids and loved ones on scene.
Well, no matter what, we need that shared humanity. We need the personal touch, maybe compassion that sometimes coming from someone who has that extra training or the experience in some of these, most unfortunate of circumstances, sometimes that really does actually touch people, and it's what they kind of need. That's how I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think you can escape grief and sorrow. It's not something that just disappears. When you are there with people in their last seconds, minutes of life, you actually have a bond with the family, and and there's sort of a walking out of that over time. And we live in a small community where we see and sometimes work alongside people that we've gone and helped or who have died in the field as well. Like that is the reality. Um, yeah. And it's if your loved one died in a tragic accident, you want to be able to talk to people about it. You want to be able to not forget them. It's a really, I would have never thought that would be such a big part of what KERPA does. It's very interesting is not the right word, but it just fascinates me how something so tragic can still um, there can still be some good that somehow comes from it. It's just I hope people sort of can track what I'm saying with some of this, but it's yeah, it's very profound, and I can't really explain it any more than that. But yeah, we're not going to run from the sorrow or the grief that families have that we become a part of by trying to help them on that day.
The human condition is a complex one, and being human is so multifaceted. And we understand that there is a mixture of joy and sorrow in everyone's lives. And if you can touch people in those moments of sorrow, then good on you. Yeah. So, 2025, I hear there are big kind of changes. You're reworking some of the ways you focus on this project. Give us a little bit of pull back the curtain stuff on how the next 3, 6, 9 months are going to go for you and all the parts of the organization.
Yeah, so I think you might get the scoop on this, Jim, officially, but yeah, I'm finishing in the emergency department at the end of this month. I think I'm just looking at my calendar around the corner, got my last 3 shifts in the emergency department coming up this week. And then I'm dedicating the last chapter of my career to KERPA. I really strongly believe that what KERPA does and how it helps the community is infinitely important. And so the last chapter of my career will be full time on the truck. And just to make it clear, I don't have a twisted motive, and I'm going to be doing it for free. I don't bill MSP. I don't get paid by the charity. But one day I'd like to foster a way that other maybe physicians behind us, who knows, we might have a multidisciplinary team, who knows, maybe we're able to have the right sort of funding there that we can pay people a stipend or even pay people to be part of a KERPA team that goes and helps people in the region, not replacing ambulance service. We're always dispatched in addition to an ambulance. But yeah, I'm finishing in the emerge and going full time on the truck.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So, how do
Uh,
you see that translate into, would you say, greater availability, or the way that KERPA is able to respond? What would be the practical outpouring of you making a big decision like that in terms of how you're functioning as a response agent?
yeah, I think my availability will be bigger on the truck, and that I'll hopefully be able to get out to more calls. But we sort of um, advocated for a wider response area for a number of years. Like this is all in the public domain. And I think 2 or 3 years ago, we were granted a wider response area. And that increased our call volume by 300%. So in the very first year in 2014, I think I attended 48 calls in a year. And just in the month of August of 2024, KERPA answered, meaning picking up the phone and saying, hello, what's going on? Answered 104 calls just in the month of August. So,
Three per
um,
day, basically, an average over three per day.
yeah. And so, I mean, being accredited, we have particular timeouts and stuff that you can't work X number of hours in a row without sleep, etc. And before, in the very first year, I was doing sort of pretty much 24/7. If the pager went, like I'd have my phone on all the time, and I would get up and go. I don't quite know how I did it all the time, but I did. But I think looking back, the volume was not that high, so it was quite manageable. But now, if I tried to do it, 24/7, it just is impossible. So probably during the working hours of the day, KERPA will be much more available. While me being on vacation, stuff like that. And then sort of out of mainstream working hours, it might be more ad hoc. If a critical call comes in, then then I may be able to dispatch. Or we also have other doctors who are training, but they're more junior than I am and haven't been experienced to as many critical 911 calls as I have. So I'd probably have to go as we have a tiered system, a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 system. So I'd be a tier 1 physician, fully able to go to all types of call. A tier 2 physician would be a physician who's gone through the KERPA training, but really needs a backup just in case it's a really difficult call. And the tier 3 would be people who are training, still in training with KERPA, because you literally can go from I like little grannies, but little granny who's broken their ankle, fully to someone in a motor vehicle, unconscious, where you're having to give them a general anesthetic at the roadside in the dirt, and that is what they require. There is no, getting them to a sterile environment or getting them up the bank. No, they actually require to be given a general anesthetic and put to sleep right there, and that takes a little bit of time in the pit, time in the trenches to sort of get comfortable with doing that.
So I know you're based in the Nelson Zone, but teach me just a little bit about the geographical area that, in effect, you're covering then. You referenced that it expanded. Can you use a word picture and sort of talk me through how wide the area that you cover now is?
Yeah, so originally it used to just be Nelson with sort of, it's not random, but I used to call it random, 20-kilometer radius. Like, why 20 kilometers when if someone's trapped in a vehicle, they could be trapped 40, 50 minutes before they're even extricated by the fire department. And you can go fairly far in 50 minutes going lights and sirens with appropriate speed limits, or safe emergency driving. Why I'm clarifying that is because an emergency response driver can exceed the speed limit where it's safe to do so. So you should be able to get there quicker than someone else who's driving the speed limit. And now with an extended radius, we're able to respond to places like Caslow, Salmo, Winlaw, Castlegar, and I think there's one other that I can't remember. Nelson, obviously, yeah. So that's quite a bit further distance. We have responded a couple of times by helicopter. I would love the province to get behind this program and just say, right, look, the community's put $500,000 into equipping this particular service. It's the only special operations medical retrieval service in the entire province, and the only physician-based ground unit with special operations capabilities in Canada. Why not utilize them in this is just a vehicle. A helicopter is just a vehicle as well. Like, we could be dropped at the side of the road in a helicopter and assist people on the Salmo Creston Highway. We could, within 20 minutes, be in Creston for someone trapped in a motor vehicle accident to assist. I think that just makes sense if you have physicians trained to go and help. So I would love to see that. There seems to be, I think red tape might be one way of describing challenges that we have in the medical profession to do things that seemingly make sense, but there is no roadmap for.
Yeah, I've argued for years that it's a delight living in a rural area out in Four Seasons playground nature, but we are decidedly underwhelmed with the patient transport options, or as you're describing, first responder options that we have out these ways. It is so hard, unless the weather is perfect and you're in the middle of summer, to get that serious response, whether it be from fixed wing transportation or rotary transportation or any of those kind of things. So then you're just stuck on highways and ground. And boy, that takes time. It's not fast or easy. I think that there's, certainly more that could be done in conjunction with what you're doing. But just broadly speaking, we need so much better response opportunities out in our rural areas, and it doesn't seem to be a priority for our Ministry of Health. At least that's my observation.
Yeah, I would say you need rapid deployment of specialized pre-hospital teams to some of the most critically injured patients in the area. And I know we have critical care paramedics in aircraft and helicopters, but that is not always enough. Like we've talked about some of the demographic challenges. We talked about 90-minute flight times into this area, and they are a busy air crew. They do fly in here, and I've met them at calls. They're absolutely fantastic paramedics, fantastically trained, very, very, very skilled. Like I'd want critical care paramedics there looking after me roadside as well. But that is not always available. It is not always, they may well be on other calls, etc. in the province. But to have, I personally, I think it builds provincial resiliency to have groups of special ops physicians who are able to go and deploy into various different situations. And within the KERPA team, we're Dr. Amy, who Amy, she does a lot of backcountry skiing and that sort of stuff, and has an interest in sort of mountain medicine. Mine is more rural urban response with tactical medicine. So I'm also tactically trained and was in the States for sort of 5 days doing sort of active shooter courses, etc. Down in the States, just gone by. And so KERPA doesn't, like, yes, we're a physician-based service, and that's our truck, but within it, we also have additional equipment to help at situations that are a little more extreme.
It's part of blending in with all the first responders, whether it be fire, whether it be police, whether it be those kind of things. That's how I've seen from a distance that you've worked to engage all those folks. Be in effect an educator, but be a colleague and just be a collaborator. Fair?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I sort of collaboration's a funny word. I sort of I like sort of being an ally, working together as groups. I sometimes find collaboration is sometimes can be subtly misconstrued as just kind of putting up with each other and rubbing shoulders, and we call it collaboration. Actually, it's not really. It's just siloed work and just putting up with each other. Whereas I think to be allied in a fight, working together to save lives at the size of patients, I think is really important. And maybe that's just my slightly biased comment regarding collaboration. But I often find like collaboration's a bit of a wet flannel word, if you know what I mean. Like it sometimes can be very surface, like shallow, when in fact, like I really feel that when you come up against patients who are really critically injured, it's a massive fight to save their lives. And that's where, all of the roles go out of the window of, okay, well, you're a physician, you're a paramedic. We're going to work together as a team to save the life of this patient. There's no turf war here. Like, we're here for the patient. And if you're not, I definitely am. So that's why I do what I do. Like, I don't have some twisted motive. It's not actually always that fun listening to a siren for an hour. And you see people go like this and even flick me the bird sometimes as I'm driving past lights and sirens because they're annoyed about the siren. I'm like, well, you're welcome to sit in here with me and listen to it for an hour while we're trying to go and save someone's life. So it's a really interesting. Yeah, I'm throwing a lot back at you, Jim.
Oh, I love your zest for using vocabulary to the best emphasis, and you've made a very careful point, saying, "Hey, that one maybe means this to me, and I much prefer this kind of language." I'm good with that. Yeah, it has to reflect what the deep purpose is, and I believe you're laying that out for us. So thank you. Hey, Nic, I'm really grateful that you spent some time sharing with us and gave us some news. Do you have one word or maybe one phrase that you're keeping at the forefront for the next year ahead for KERPA and all the work that it does?
Yeah, I think it's sort of this little quote up here, um, and it says, "Never, never, never give up." Yeah, yeah,
Little
like
Churchillian there, perhaps?
yeah, yeah, a little bit of Winston Churchill there.
Yes.
Yeah, my mum, my mum loves Winston Churchill quotes, so she has like that one stuck on her fridge back in our UK, like my parents' home, and she gave me a little Churchill mug that I smashed. But I really like Churchill's statement, never, never, never give up. And yeah, I feel like this is something I really have on my heart to do, and I'm not going to quit. I truly believe that, yeah, physicians have a role in pre-hospital care, and I know that we're saving lives and helping people in the Kootenay. So, yeah, that's maybe more my motivation. That we want to keep going, and KERPA's overarching, like, we have a board of directors. There's many people. I know that I'm frequently targeted as the face for KERPA, but there's many people that sort of help within it. And our mission statement is saving lives, helping critically ill and injured patients, and supporting the emergency services, fire, police, ambulance, search and rescue, everyone involved in the emergency services. That's it. Like, we don't come with a hidden agenda. We're not, making tons of money on the side. Like, no, we're there to save lives, and all the other bits attached to it. That's it, plain simple.
Well, Nic, you, of all the folks that I can think of, are a perfect example of someone who has, quote, transformed healthcare in Southeast BC. Thank you for joining me today and sharing all these details with me, and blessings for the future and all the work that you're doing. Thanks, Nic.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for having us on, Jim.
Right on, man.